Pete Hegseth is full of himself and full of it. You've mismanaged the money in the budget that the Congress has already given you. The fact that you're coming back and asking for another $67 billion and proposing a $1+ trillion budget for next year, you are full of it. We'll talk a little bit later what can be done with some of that money. But the reality of it is, Senator, he can't answer the question because he has mismanaged the budget. There's 17+ troops who are dead on his watch. That's not accounted for. The use of munitions, the use of strategy, the lack of strategy. How does he come before the committee and justify this? What was your take today? How do you see this playing out? Because I can't see any Republicans that I once knew sitting there thinking that this fool actually made sense in this request today, given the money that's already been spent to what? To what end? What are we seeing? What do we see for this money?
So two things. First of all, just the context. This is a war of choice. We were not under any threat from Iran. And it has been an unmitigated disaster in terms of loss of life, in terms of who's bearing the costs. My farmers, my constituents who can't afford to fill their fuel tanks, and farmers can't afford to buy fertilizer. The Strait of Hormuz now choked up. It was open before we went in. All of the political goals they've expressed, they've made no progress on. We're in worse shape now that this war has been commenced than we were before it began. But on the question that I asked Secretary Hegseth, which was about the deadliest day in this war so far, March 1st, when we lost six service members and dozens more were significantly and severely injured, we were unprepared. And there's been recent reporting from many of the troops that survived that attack about the fact that they asked for additional air defense, that they asked for medical preparedness in case, and were denied those requests. And he either wasn't briefed on that and didn't know that they were denied.
A form of mismanagement.
Right. Unprepared. Or worse yet, is covering it up. And all in this context, they're asking for tens of billions of dollars more for this war of choice. Americans want it to come to an end.
Senator, I think the way you characterize it is very important because it is a war of choice. And this is not a war that has been authorized by Congress at all. There is no authorization for the use of military force. This is being done unilaterally by the executive branch. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson was asked about that today. I want to play what he said, please.
The administration is working very hard. The commander-in-chief and the whole Department of War, they're working very hard to bring this to a resolution. There's a lot of discussions about how that will be done. We're all closely watching those developments, of course. I don't think an AUMF is in order right now. I think we need to bring this to a resolution.
We need to bring this to a resolution without congressional involvement, essentially neutering the legislative branch. We do have some reporting, though, from Notice that Senate Republicans are now pushing for more of a say in the Iran war. Several lawmakers said Monday that Congress should no longer remain on the sidelines. The White House needs to explain where the conflict is headed. Quote, I think it is clear that it is time for Congress to act, Senator Curtis said, and that doesn't mean that it's necessarily acting, constraining the president, but in fact defining what this looks like. 17 service members dead, billions upon billions upon billions of dollars in a country, frankly, is hurting this economy. A lot of people can't make ends meet. Do you think that your Republican colleagues have the fortitude to actually have a real honest debate about this war?
Well, let me point out a couple of obvious things. One is they have not come to Capitol Hill until today and one other appearance to take questions in public, the administration, about this war. That's outrageous, given the loss of life, given the expenditures related. I also want to get to one point you made, that obviously this war is not authorized by Congress, but both houses have now gone on record with a majority saying that this conflict must end absent congressional authorization. A majority of both houses passed a concurrent resolution saying that. And so we've got to bear that in mind. Do I trust my Republican colleagues to act responsibly and to do what Congress is called upon to do at this moment, well, I've been very disappointed that they haven't in large number thus far. But I always have hope that they will understand that we are a branch of government that is the one that declares war. We're the ones with the power of the purse strings. We need to use those powers to hold this administration to account.
So, keep hope alive.
Well, as the late great Reverend Jesse Jackson would say. Well, to the point you just made then, I mean, coming into this segment, we played that sound from the secretary who is underscoring that, like, Democrats don't want to fund the military. And I think previously, which I don't think is true, to be very clear, but I think previously a claim like that would have grown legs. But we can all see with our own eyes. We have heard we've heard the mischaracterizations from, I mean, Pete Hegseth a couple months ago, didn't we obliterate Iran's nuclear capability?
Yeah.
Right.
And then we still went to war with Iran, and now we done obliterated it again and again, but yet they are still bombing us. It's not making sense. And so the people can see that. Are Democrats and some Republicans, though, prepared to say, we aren't funding any of this because we need a full accounting of what's going on in this war? We still haven't even spoken about the war crimes, allegedly, that this administration is committing in Iran by bombing civilian infrastructure. Are folks prepared to really hold firm on this?
Yes, and let me just remind some conversations we've had before on this. There's a group of us in the Senate who have come repeatedly to the floor of the Senate weekly to say, to present a war powers resolution and to say, go on record. Do you support this or not? Then last week, we took the nearly unprecedented move of saying we are not moving the National Defense Authorization Act forward. We will at some point, but not right now while this war is going on. And so there's a lot of folks drawing a line in the sand. But back to your point about, do Democrats support funding our troops, funding defense? Right now, in our current fiscal year, the Defense Department reached nearly $1 trillion in funding. That was a significant increase for this current fiscal year.
I mean, the claim is a lie.
Right?
Can we just the claim is a bunch of BS. It's a lie.
That's right. That's right.